Helena Martinez stood on the observation deck of the HMS Valiant. Her eyes were fixed on the massive alien warships that formed a tight circle around the last human colony on Proxima Centauri. The ships looked like giant black insects against the red-tinged sky. Their weapons were always pointed at the colony, a constant reminder of the danger. It had been 3 months since the siege began. 3 long months of waiting, fighting, and watching people die. Helena's uniform felt too loose now. Everyone was losing weight as food supplies ran low. Sleep came rarely, and when it did, nightmares followed. The door behind her slid open with a soft hiss. Colonel Frank Davis walked in, his boots making heavy sounds on the metal floor. He carried a tablet in his hand, and the dark circles under his eyes told Helena all she needed to know before he even spoke. "More bad news?" she asked, still looking at the enemy ships. Frank nodded. "We lost 12 more soldiers in the eastern fight last night. 3 mech suits destroyed too." Helena closed her eyes for a moment. Each loss hit her like a physical pain. "Names?" "I have them here," Frank said, offering the tablet. She took it and read each name slowly. She knew most of them. Good people, brave fighters, now gone. "And the shields?" she asked, handing the tablet back. "Down to 37%. Kate and her engineers say we have 2 weeks at best before complete failure." Helena walked to the large window. She placed her hand against the cool glass. Somewhere behind those alien ships was Earth, too far away to see, too far away to help. "I remember the day I landed here," she said softly. 5 years ago. The sky was clearer then. We thought this place would be our new beginning. Humanity's big step into the stars. Frank stood beside her. "It still can be." She gave him a tired smile. Always the optimist. "Someone has to be." A flash of light caught their attention. One of the Krell ships was firing, not at the colony, but at a small meteor that had drifted too close to their formation. The alien weapon turned the rock to dust instantly. "They're getting jumpy," Frank noted. "Wouldn't you be?" They expected to crush us in days, not months. Helena turned away from the window and walked to the small table where a map of the colony was displayed. The once thriving settlement of 50,000 people was now reduced to the central hub and a few outlying structures. Most civilians were packed into underground shelters, while soldiers and essential workers maintained the defense. "We need to move the Western Medical Unit deeper inside," she said, pointing to a spot on the map. "They're too exposed if the Krell hit that section again." Frank made a note. "Already working on it. Dr. Mason says they can relocate by tomorrow." Helena nodded and straightened her back. The weight of command pressed down on her shoulders like gravity from a much larger world. Everyone looked to her for answers, for hope. Some days she wasn't sure she had any left to give. "The council meeting is in an hour," Frank reminded her. "I'll be there." After Frank left, Helena returned to the window. She watched as the Krell ships adjusted their positions slightly, maintaining their perfect blockade. Their movements were always precise, almost beautiful in their deadly efficiency. A small alert beeped on her wrist device, another report needing her attention. Another problem to solve. The life of a colony leader during the end of the world. Helena took one last look at the enemy ships, at the fragile dome shields protecting her people, at the distant stars that seemed so indifferent to their struggle. "We're still here," she whispered to the empty room. "And tomorrow, we'll still be here." She turned and walked toward the door, back straight, eyes forward. There was work to do. There was always work to do when you were fighting extinction. The underground command center hummed with activity. Screens lined the walls, showing different parts of the colony and the space around it. The air felt stuffy despite the cooling systems. 20 people sat around a large round table, their faces tired but alert. Helena entered the room, and everyone stood up. She waved them back to their seats and took her place at the head of the table. Maps and reports were spread out in front of her. "Let's not waste time," she said. "Captain Wright, what's our situation in space?" Captain Samantha Wright stood up. Her red hair was pulled back tightly, and her uniform had a small tear at the shoulder that no one had time to fix. "It's not good," she said, pressing a button that changed the main screen to show the positions of all ships. "The Krell fleet now outnumbers us 6-1. Their ships have better weapons and have taken up positions that block every possible escape route." Someone muttered a curse. Helena noticed it was Mayor Jack Perry, the civilian leader who had lost his family in the first Krell attack. "Any sign of help from Earth?" he asked. Samantha shook her head. "No signals have gotten through the Krell blockade. Even if they did, the nearest help is 4 months away at best." Helena nodded for Samantha to sit, then turned to a thin man with glasses. "Lieutenant Summers, what have you learned from the enemy communications?" Eric Summers pulled up a series of strange symbols on his tablet. "We've been monitoring their transmissions. Our translation is still rough, but we believe they're planning a final attack within days, not weeks." The room grew quiet. Helena looked around at the faces of her leadership team. Some showed fear, others determination. "Why wait?" asked Colonel Frank Davis. "Why not just finish us now?" "They're gathering more ships," Eric explained. "They want to make sure we're completely destroyed this time." Helena turned to a gray-haired man at the far end of the table. "Dr. Peterson, please tell us about your findings." Dr. Alan Peterson walked to the main screen and displayed images of Krell biology. The alien creatures looked like a cross between insects and reptiles, with 4 arms and tough, scaly skin. "We've been studying the Krell bodies from our last battle," he said in a calm voice. "I believe we found something important. The Krell need special air mixtures to survive. Their ships and suits have environmental systems that are their weak point." He showed a diagram of a Krell battle suit. "Here, at the base of the neck, is where their air supply connects. A direct hit there might be more effective than trying to penetrate their armor elsewhere." Helena leaned forward. "Can we modify our weapons to target these areas specifically?" "My team is working on it now," Dr. Peterson said. "But it will only help in close combat situations. It doesn't solve our bigger problem." Helena looked back at the map of the colony and the surrounding Krell ships. 3 options formed in her mind, none of them good. "We have 3 choices," she said to the room. "First, we continue to defend and hope Earth somehow sends help in time. Second, we attempt a breakout with our remaining ships and try to save as many people as possible. Or third, we try to negotiate with the Krell." Mayor Perry laughed without humor. "Negotiate? They've never responded to any of our communication attempts. They just want us dead." "I know," Helena said quietly, "but we need to consider every option." Colonel Davis leaned in. "What about the project in the lower labs? The thing Dr. Peterson's other team has been working on?" The room grew tense. Some people looked confused, while others exchanged knowing glances. Dr. Peterson adjusted his glasses. "It's not ready. It might never be ready." Helena stood up slowly. "I think it's time I saw this project for myself." She turned to the group. "Continue preparing our defenses. I'll meet with Dr. Peterson's science team immediately." As people began gathering their things, an alarm suddenly blared. One of the screens flashed red, showing Krell ships moving into a new formation. "They're testing our western defenses," someone called out. Helena's voice cut through the rising noise. "Everyone to your stations. This meeting is over." Helena and Dr. Peterson rode the elevator deep beneath the colony's central hub. The air grew cooler as they descended. The lights flickered twice, making Helena frown. "Power issues again?" she asked. Dr. Peterson nodded. "We're redirecting most energy to the shields. Everything else gets the leftovers." The elevator stopped with a gentle bump. A heavy door stood before them with a sign that read Project Wayfinder, authorized personnel only. Dr. Peterson placed his hand on a scanner, and the door slid open. Inside was a large circular room filled with equipment. 5 scientists worked at different stations. In the center sat a strange device unlike anything Helena had seen before. It was shaped like a spiral, made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Parts of it glowed with a soft blue light. "What am I looking at, Alan?" Helena asked quietly. Dr. Peterson guided her closer to the device. "We found it in the ruins beneath the colony, the ones we discovered last year. We believe it's a quantum entanglement communicator." Helena looked at him with surprise. "You mean it can send messages instantly across space, without the Krell being able to block it?" "Potentially, yes. But there's more to it." He lowered his voice. "We don't think humans built this. The technology is far beyond ours. It may have been left by a species that lived here long before either humans or Krell arrived." Helena circled the device slowly. "Does it work?" A female scientist approached them. "We've made progress, but we haven't fully activated it yet," she explained. "The symbols and controls are unlike anything we've studied before, but we're learning." "How did you even find this?" Helena asked. Dr. Peterson pointed to some images on a nearby screen. They showed underground tunnels and chambers with strange writing on the walls. "The earthquake last year revealed part of the ruins. We've been secretly exploring them ever since." This device was in what appeared to be a communication center. Helena touched the edge of the spiral device. It felt warm, almost alive. "If we can use this to call for help." "That's the hope," Dr. Peterson said. "But there's a problem." He guided her to a power diagram on another screen. "Activating it will require enormous energy. Energy we can only get by diverting power from our shield generators." Helena understood immediately. "So we'd be defenseless." "For about 6 minutes, yes, if the Krell notice and attack during that window." The words hung in the air, unnecessary to complete. Everyone knew what would happen. Helena studied the device again. "How confident are you that this will work?" Dr. Peterson exchanged glances with his team. 70% confident it will activate. Beyond that, we don't know what will happen. It might send a message to Earth, or it might do something else entirely." "Something else?" Helena asked. The female scientist stepped forward. "The device is part of a larger system. We found references in the ruins to something called the network. We think this might be a key to accessing it." Helena was about to ask another question when alarms began blaring. A voice came over the communication system. "Alert! Krill forces attacking Western Quadrant. All defense teams to positions." Helena's hand went to her communicator. "Status report." Colonel Davis's voice answered, tense and loud over the background noise of weapons fire. "They launched a larger force this time, trying to find a weak spot in our defenses. We need you up here." Helena looked at the device one more time, then at Dr. Peterson. "Keep working on this. I want options by the time I return." She hurried back to the elevator, her mind racing. If the device worked, it could save them all. If it failed and drained their shields, it would doom them. It was a desperate gamble either way. As the elevator rose, Helena heard the distant sounds of battle growing louder. Her people were fighting and dying while she'd been looking at ancient technology that might not even work. The weight of command had never felt heavier. The doors opened to chaos. Soldiers ran past, heading toward the sound of weapons fire. Helena straightened her back and followed them. The front line was where she needed to be now. Helena ran through the crowded hallways toward the western defense line. People moved aside to let her pass, some nodding respectfully, others too focused on their own urgent tasks to notice her. The sounds of battle grew louder. Energy weapons firing, metal striking metal, and the high-pitched screeching of the Krell battle cries. She reached the command post where Major Ben Collins was directing the defense. "Status report," Helena shouted over the noise. Ben pointed to a display showing the perimeter. "They hit us with 30 attack units, mostly ground troops with air support. They're testing our weak points." Through the reinforced windows, Helena saw the battle raging. The colony's remaining mech suits, 12-foot-tall armored exoskeletons piloted by humans, fought at the front line. Each moved with deadly grace, their weapons tearing through the insect-like Krell soldiers. "Who's out there?" Helena asked. "Morgan's leading Alpha Squad. She's keeping them back for now." Helena watched as one mech, marked with a red stripe, moved faster than the others. It danced between Krell attackers, its plasma cannons firing with perfect accuracy. That was Lisa Morgan, their best pilot. "She's pushing too hard," Ben said with concern. "The neural feedback on those movements must be intense." Mech suits were connected directly to their pilots' nervous systems. It allowed for incredible control, but came with a cost. Too much strain could cause seizures or worse. Helena grabbed a comm unit. "Morgan, this is Martinez. Don't burn yourself out. We need you for the long fight." The red-striped mech paused briefly. "With respect, ma'am," came Lisa's strained voice. "If we don't win this fight, there won't be a long one." The mechs then charged toward a massive Krell vehicle that had just broken through the outer defenses. The vehicle looked like a giant armored centipede, with multiple weapon turrets along its segments. It fired at Lisa's mech, but she dodged with incredible speed. Everyone in the command post watched as Lisa circled the Krell vehicle, firing precisely at its joints. The giant centipede slowed, then stopped moving as its segments were disabled one by one. Lisa's mech jumped onto its back, ripped open an access panel, and fired directly into its power core. The Krell vehicle exploded in a flash of blue light. Lisa's mech was thrown backward by the blast. It hit the ground hard and didn't get up. "Medical team to the front. Pilot down," Ben shouted into his comm. Helena watched anxiously as a rescue team rushed to the fallen mech. They extracted Lisa's unconscious body from the cockpit and carried her toward the medical center. Over the next hour, the Krell attack slowly weakened. Without their heavy assault vehicle, the alien soldiers began to retreat. Human defenders cheered as the last enemies disappeared into the forest beyond the perimeter. Later, Helena walked through the medical center, stopping to talk with each wounded soldier. She thanked them for their bravery, asked about their pain, and promised they would not be forgotten. Some would recover and fight again. Others never would. She found Lisa Morgan in a quiet corner, hooked up to monitors. The young pilot was awake but weak, her eyes unfocused from the neural feedback. "You saved a lot of lives today," Helena told her. Lisa tried to smile. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "Rest now." "That's an order." After finishing her rounds, Helena stepped outside with Ben. The sky was growing dark, the alien ships still visible as black shapes against the stars. "We won today," Ben said quietly, "but we lost 14 more people. 3 mech suits destroyed. We can't keep this up, Helena." She nodded, the weight of his words settling on her shoulders. "I know. The troops need hope, something to believe in." Helena looked at him. In the dim light, she could see the exhaustion on his face, the same exhaustion everyone felt. "I'm afraid I'm running out of hope to give them," she admitted. Ben reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of metal. It was dark and worn smooth by handling. "This is a piece of steel from my grandfather's tank," he said, "from Earth's last great war. He carried it through 30 battles. Said it reminded him that humanity has faced extinction before and survived." He pressed it into her hand. "Now it's yours." Helena closed her fingers around the steel, feeling its weight and history. "We've overcome impossible odds before," Ben said. "We'll do it again." She looked up at the enemy ships circling their small colony. For the first time in days, she felt a tiny spark of hope return. The next morning, Helena called an emergency meeting in the underground laboratory. Dr. Peterson stood next to the ancient device, while Colonel Davis, Major Ben Collins, and Captain Samantha Wright gathered around it. The piece of steel Ben had given her was now in Helena's pocket, a small comfort she kept close. "Our shields are at 29%, Helena said. "At this rate, we'll be defenseless in 10 days, maybe less." She turned to Dr. Peterson. "Tell them about the device." The scientist explained about the quantum communicator and its potential to call for help beyond the Krell blockade. He didn't sugarcoat the risks. "To power it, We need to redirect energy from our shields. For about 6 minutes, we'll be completely vulnerable." Colonel Davis frowned. "If the Krell notice and attack during those 6 minutes, they'll wipe us out," Ben finished. Captain Wright studied the spiral-shaped device. "But if it works, we could get a message to the Earth fleet, maybe even to the Mars Defense Force." Helena looked at each of them. "I've made my decision. We're going to try it." No one argued. They all knew they were running out of options. But, Helena continued, "We need a distraction. Something to keep the Krell occupied while we power up the device." Captain Wright straightened her back. "I can lead our remaining ships on a strike mission. Hit their command vessel. Make them think we're attempting a breakout." "That's a suicide mission," Colonel Davis said quietly. Samantha nodded. "Probably. But it will keep their eyes off the colony for those 6 minutes." Helena didn't want to send her friend to die. But as a leader, she had to make impossible choices. "How many ships do you need?" 5. "The fastest ones we have left." Helena approved the plan. Captain Wright left to prepare her pilots while the others worked out the details of powering the ancient device. 3 hours later, everything was ready. Helena stood in the control room overlooking the laboratory. Dr. Peterson and his team made final adjustments to the device, while engineers prepared to redirect power from the shields. Helena's communicator beeped. "Right here. We're in position." "Understood," Helena replied. "Begin your run in 2 minutes." She switched channels. "Shield control, prepare to redirect power on my mark." The next 2 minutes passed slowly. Helena watched the screens showing Captain Wright's 5 ships moving into attack formation. They were small and fast, but no match for the Krell fleet in a direct fight. "Attack run beginning," came Samantha's voice, calm despite the danger. On the screens, the 5 human ships accelerated toward the largest Krell vessel. Smaller Krell ships moved to intercept them. "Now," Helena ordered, "redirect shield power." Warning alarms blared throughout the colony as the protective energy dome flickered and then disappeared. The colony was now completely exposed. In the laboratory below, the ancient device began to hum. Its spiral shape started to rotate slowly as power flowed into it. The blue glow brightened until it was almost painful to look at. On the space monitors, Captain Wright's ships engaged the Krell. 1 human ship exploded almost immediately. The others continued their attack run, weaving between enemy fire. They focused all their weapons on the Krell command ship. 30 seconds to full power, Dr. Peterson called out. Another human ship was hit, spinning out of control before exploding. 60 seconds to full power, came the update. On the main view screen, Helena watched as Captain Wright's ship took a direct hit but kept flying. It was trailing debris, clearly damaged beyond repair, but Samantha drove it straight toward the Krell command ship. For Earth, came Samantha's final transmission before her ship rammed into the Krell vessel. The explosion tore a hole in the alien craft's side. Helena fought back tears as she watched her friend's sacrifice. 2 more human ships were destroyed in quick succession. The last one was retreating, drawing Krell fighters away from the colony. "Full power achieved," Dr. Peterson shouted. The ancient device was now spinning rapidly, its glow filling the laboratory. The entire colony shuddered as if hit by an earthquake. Scientists scrambled to maintain control. "What's happening?" Helena demanded. Dr. Peterson looked up, his face showing both fear and wonder. "It's not just activating. It's connecting to something else. There are energy signatures appearing all over the ruins beneath us." Helena felt the metal floor vibrating under her feet. Throughout the colony, people stopped what they were doing as they felt the strange tremors. Something ancient was waking up underneath them. The ancient device spun faster and faster. Bright blue light filled the laboratory, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. Then, without warning, the device stopped spinning and shot a beam of energy directly at Helena. She had no time to move. The beam hit her square in the chest, lifting her off her feet. Instead of pain, she felt a strange warmth spreading through her body. "Helena!" Colonel Davis shouted, rushing toward her. Then Helena's mind exploded with images and knowledge. She saw stars and planets she didn't recognize. She saw beautiful cities built by beings with 4 arms and crystalline skin. She saw the Krell, younger as a species, making their first attacks on these peaceful worlds. She was experiencing memories from an ancient race that once lived on this planet. The images came faster. Wars. Terrible wars that lasted centuries. The crystal beings, they called themselves the Architects, fought bravely, but were slowly pushed back by the more numerous Krell. This planet had been one of their last strongholds. Helena saw the Architects building massive weapons and defense systems beneath the surface of the world. She saw them hiding their technology, sealing it away as the last of them prepared to leave or die. A final memory came through clearly. An architect speaking directly to whoever would find their legacy. "We leave this gift to those who will come after. The Krell destroyed our civilization, but our technology remains. Use it to defend yourselves. Use it to survive." The energy beam suddenly disappeared. Helena collapsed to the floor, gasping. Colonel Davis and Dr. Peterson were instantly at her side. "Helena, can you hear me?" Davis asked, his voice tight with worry. She nodded, unable to speak yet. Her mind was still processing everything she had seen. "What happened?" Dr. Peterson asked, scanning her with a medical device. Helena took a deep breath and sat up. "I saw them. The ones who built this. The Architects." The tremors across the colony grew stronger. On the monitors, they could see equipment rising from the ground in various parts of the settlement. Ancient machinery that had been buried for thousands of years was now breaking through the surface. The device wasn't meant to send a message, Helena said, her voice stronger now. "It's a key to activate their defense system." She stood up, her legs shaky, but her mind suddenly clear. The Architects fought the Krell before us. They nearly lost everything, but they left their weapons behind, hoping another race would use them someday. Dr. Peterson looked at the readings on his tablet. "The energy signature is spreading throughout the ruins. Whatever was down there is waking up." "We need to get back to the command center," Helena said. As they hurried through the corridors, more tremors shook the colony. People looked scared but followed emergency protocols, moving to secure areas. In the command center, the screens showed chaos. Giant metal structures were emerging from the ground all around the colony. Some looked like weapon platforms, others like shield generators. "The Krell ships are changing formation," one officer reported. "They're moving into attack positions." Helena stepped forward. She could feel a strange connection to the rising structures, as if part of her consciousness was somehow linked to them. "The defense system needs a control interface," she said quietly. Major Ben Collins looked at her with concern. "What do you mean?" "The Architects designed their weapons to be controlled by a living mind. Their own minds, originally." Helena turned to face her officers. "I can feel the system trying to connect with me. The device didn't just show me memories. It prepared me to interface with their technology." "That's too dangerous," Colonel Davis argued. "We don't know what it could do to you." Helena looked at the screens showing the Krell ships preparing to attack. They had noticed the rising structures and recognized the ancient weapons of their old enemy. "We don't have a choice," she said. "The weapons won't activate without a controlling consciousness. The Architects designed it that way as a safeguard." Outside, more structures continued to rise from the ground. Massive cannons emerged from hillsides. Shield generators broke through the colony's outer fields. And deep beneath the surface, something even larger was waking up. Helena touched the piece of steel in her pocket one last time. Then she made her decision. "Take me back to the device," she said. "I know what needs to be done." Helena stood before the ancient device in the laboratory. Her officers and friends had tried to talk her out of it, but her mind was made up. "There has to be another way," Major Ben Collins pleaded. "There isn't," Helena said simply. The architects designed their systems to need a guiding consciousness. Without it, the weapons are useless. Colonel Davis stepped forward. Then let me do it. That's my job, to protect the colony. Helena shook her head. The device chose me. It prepared my mind for the connection. She looked around at their worried faces. This is my decision. As your leader, I'm ordering you to help me. Reluctantly, they moved into position. Dr. Peterson made final adjustments to the device, while Helena sat in a chair directly facing the spiral structure. The connection will be permanent, Dr. Peterson warned. According to what we can translate from the architect writings, your consciousness will spread throughout their network. Your body will remain alive, but your mind will exist primarily within their systems. Helena nodded. I understand. Outside, the colony trembled as more ancient technology rose from the ground. On the monitors, they could see the Krell fleet moving into attack formation. Time was running out. Helena looked at her friends one last time. Whatever happens, remember that we fought for something worth saving. She reached out and placed her hands on two small panels that had appeared on the sides of the device. Instantly, thin glowing lines, like blue veins, spread from the device up her arms. They continued across her skin, covering her body in a network of light. Helena's eyes closed, then opened again, now glowing with the same blue light. I can see everything, she whispered. Her consciousness expanded outward, flowing through ancient pathways buried beneath the colony. She felt herself connecting to weapons platforms, defense systems, and machines that had no names in human languages. Her physical body remained in the chair, breathing but motionless except for her glowing eyes that tracked things no one else could see. Krell ships are opening fire, someone shouted from the command center. As the first Krell weapons fired, massive shield generators emerged from the ground all around the colony. They activated instantly, creating a dome of energy far stronger than the human shields had ever been. The Krell weapons hit the dome and dissolved harmlessly. Then the architect weapons responded. Giant cannons rose from mountains and fired beams of blue energy at the Krell ships. The beams cut through Krell shields as if they weren't there. 3 enemy ships exploded almost immediately. From the oceans on the far side of the colony, enormous hangar doors opened. Automated architect warships, sleek and deadly, launched into the sky. They moved with impossible speed, attacking the Krell fleet from behind. The Krell, recognizing the ancient weapons of their old enemy, began to break formation. Some ships tried to retreat while others fired desperately at the colony. In the laboratory, Helena's body remained still, but her mind was everywhere at once. She directed the defense with perfect precision, protecting the colony while destroying the Krell ships one by one. It's working, Dr. Peterson said in awe. She's controlling the entire system. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, the Krell fleet was destroyed or had fled. The colony was safe for the first time in months. Days later, Helena's friends gathered in the laboratory. Her body still sat in the chair, sustained by medical equipment. The glowing lines on her skin had faded but were still visible. A holographic projection appeared before them. Helena's face, composed of blue light. I can still speak with you this way, her voice said, sounding distant but clear. Can we bring you back? Ben asked, his voice breaking. The hologram shook its head. My consciousness is spread throughout the architect network now. I exist in many places at once. Is there anything we can do for you? Colonel Davis asked. Live, the hologram said simply. Build the colony we dreamed of. I'll be here, watching over you. The hologram expanded, showing a map of the galaxy with tiny points of light scattered across it. I can feel connections to other architect outposts. Other worlds where their technology sleeps, waiting. We're not alone in this fight anymore. Helena's projection smiled. The siege is over, but my watch is just beginning. As her friends left the laboratory, Helena's consciousness expanded further, reaching out to the stars. The architects had left their legacy on many worlds. And now, through her, humanity would find them all. The piece of steel from Earth's last great war remained in her physical body's pocket, a reminder of where she came from, even as she became something new.